Okay, so last year we talked about absolute values, by the way. So this is what we did at the end of grade 11. So that's what these straight lines mean. When you do something like that, it means to absolute value it. Do you remember those lines? Kind of like a bracket, but a straight line. Okay, this is what I told you last year. In math, if you, in vectors, physics, some of you might have done that. If you go north 8 kilometers, it'd be like a positive 8. And if you go south 8 kilometers, it'd be a negative 8 in a vector sense, like going north, going south, right? When we talk about distance, does negative 8 as a distance even make sense? No. So if I absolute it, I'm just going to say, hey, I want a distance of 8. If I go south, I'm still going a distance of 8. So you're taking the number without its direction. Okay, so I'm going to actually do this bottom part first. So if the y value is positive, what happens when you absolute a positive number? You leave it. If it's positive, you just leave it. If the y value is negative, what happens if you absolute a negative number? Then you change it to a positive number. And what would we do with 0? If you take the absolute value of 0, you would leave it. Okay, can we go a distance of 0? Yeah, you can leave it. Can you go a distance of 5? Yeah, you leave it. Can you go a distance of negative 4? No, you change it. Okay, so when I write the coordinate, an xy is going to turn into x comma absolute y. So you don't do anything with the x, and then you decide what you want to do with the y. Okay, so 5 negative 8 is going to turn into 5 comma positive 8. That's one we're going to change. Negative 610 would turn into negative 6, because you don't do anything at all with the x. You just rewrite it. And then you decide, what do you want to do with the y? What do you want to do with 10?
Leave it.
Leave it. And 3 comma 0, it's going to stay.
So you never do anything with the x, just the y.
Right, because of, yeah, just the y. Because f of x is in the absolute, and f of x is the fancy version of a y. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Okay, ready? What's the absolute rules? Positive, stay, 0, stay, negative, change.
Only for y.
That's what happens with the y's. Ahmad, I saw your question. It is just the y's that we're doing the changing or staying with. Yep. Okay, tell me what parts of this would stay? 1 0 will stay. 1 0 will stay. What else will stay? This whole piece will stay, right? Because it's all above or 0. And then what else did you say?
Negative 4.
Negative 4, 0. That coordinate will also stay. What about this entire section right here?
No, will not stay. It will flip
It will move. It'll have to go from negative
to positive.
to positive. Okay, so I'm gonna graph that. So I'm gonna repeat that because it stays there. It's positive, so it's gonna stay there, and the 0 stays there. Negative 4, 0 stays. Okay, so I'm gonna be changing that. We gotta make sure we change it to the exact location we want. So for instance, this coordinate is 0, negative 2. Where do you actually want to move it?
Positive.
You want to move it to 0, positive 2? Are you good with your visualization? Can you visualize this just flip-flopping? Okay? Okay, when I look at this and this, they almost look the exact same. But here, this is, actually, can you tell me what this subtract 2 is doing? Is this a left-right movement or is it an up-down movement? It's a down 2. This is moving something down 2. What's this doing? It's also a down 2.
Then why is it out of the box?
If I wanted something to move left and right, it could look something like this. Right? This would be a left-right transformation. You see a difference? It's out of the brackets. Okay, so here's the difference in these questions. The down 2 is inside the brackets, and here the down 2 is outside the brackets. Okay, so visually I have two things going on. I have some absolute and a down 2. There's an absolute and a down 2. They both have those things going on, but it's all about the order you're going to do them in. So, what do you think about bed mass? What does bed mass tell you to do? You have to do inside brackets first with bed mass, right? So on this one, you're going to go down 2 first, and then you're going to absolute, because it's in the brackets. So bed mass says you have to do something in the brackets first, versus this, the way it's written. Do you see the difference? Here you're going to absolute, right? And then after, you're going to move down 2.
So absolute is what, like going up and down? I'm going left to right? Or what?
Absolute is doing all these. Stay, change, I don't know. There's not really one rule. It's like, I don't know what it's going to specifically look like. I have to analyze stay or change. I have to figure that out. Okay, so this is my original. We're going off the same original. Ready? I'm going to move it down 2, and I'm going to draw it lightly because it's not my final graph. Okay, can you take this? We're not going to go coordinate by coordinate. Can you just think, where are the points going to move down to? So this coordinate, can you move it down to? Right? I took negative 4, 0, boom, boom, down 2. Can you take 0, negative 2? Can you go down 2?
Are you going by...
I'm just taking a bunch of the coordinates and I'm going boop, boop, down 2.
Oh, I see.
Can you go here? 1, 0. Can you take it and go 1, 2 down? I'm gonna also take this coordinate 2, 2. So 2, 2, and I'm gonna move it 2 down. And I'm going to draw this. So that's that shape, and I actually made my arrow, I made it extended, because I'm going to show you something or why. Okay, does that make sense? That's my shape. I went down 2. We're good with that? Now we're going to absolute this shape. So where do you want it to stay? Is there any part that's going to stay? That section is going to stay. That whole section stayed. What about this section? It's going to change. So for instance, this is a 0, -4. Now it's up 0, 4. This is a -2, so I'm going to change the height to up +2. So there's my final graph. Okay, so I took that graph, I went down 2, and then I absoluted it. Okay, so this time I'm going to have to absolute and then go down 2. So I have to absolute this, and we actually already did that. So it's just this graph, so I'm going to lightly do that graph. So we've already done that work. We already absoluted it. Okay, now take that graph and shift it down 2. And that's the result. So do you see how the final shape's completely different? Okay, it all depends on the order. So making sure you understand what goes before what. Okay, I'll do some with you maybe.
That's it?
Yeah,
That's all you're doing
yep. So page 14. We did already. We did the absolute. This was the absolute. So that was done. I'm done the absolutes.
Oh.
Okay? So now stop thinking about absolutes. Take that picture and now go down to with that picture. Okay. Actually, so 14 is where it starts, right? Let's go to 15. Okay, you ready? There we go. There's some kind of absolute, and what else happening here? What's this -1? Down 1. There's an absolute, and there's a down 1. What's the order? What should I do before what? Absolute, and then down. Because it's not in the brackets. It's to do the absolute, then shift it down. Okay, so let's do the absolute. You ready? This should stay because it's already positive.
There's only one point that really has to change, right?
Well, this whole shape. And this will move, right? Because it's negative, so I have to change it to positive. So this coordinate so do you understand that this is the new absolute graph? Okay, so this is out of there, right? I changed it. Okay, now can you take that shape and move it down one? So I'm going to take this point here. You have to move all the points down one. So that's your final graph. That's okay? Okay. Given the graph of this, what's the range? If I was to absolute it, what would the range be? Okay, so what would happen? So this would kind of go like this way, right? That would go positive. This part would stay. This part would change. I'm not being too accurate here, but. And this part would stay. Okay. So when I look at my new graph, so my dark graph here, what's the range of that graph? Do you remember what range is in math? It's how low to how high. So what's the lowest my dark graph is going to go? 0 to the highest height? Infinite. So do you know which one of those would match? What does that mean to you in math, this symbol? More than or equal to 0, right? That's what that is. More than or equal to 0. Okay. Number 4, I see two things happening. I see an absolute, and what does negatives do in a physical sense? What do they do to something? What do you say? Flips? Reflects. So there's an absolute going on and a reflect. Okay, what do you think I should do first?
Can I ask why the like before this one, number 3, why is the line going up?
Where's the line going up?
The that one now.
This one?
Yes, because
Uh,
before
It was I did that graph stays.
why?
Because the
I
y
see.
values were positive, so I left them there.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Okay, ready? Absolute, and there's a reflect. So what do you want to do first? What do you have to do first? You absolute, and then you reflect. What would it look like if it would have been the other way around? It would look like this. If I had this, I'd have to reflect, then absolute. Do you see a difference in the format? Reflect, and then absolute. So this is absolute, and then reflect. Okay, you ready? Can you lightly absolute that? So this would stay. Actually, I'll draw it over here. So So this is the idea, that piece stays and that piece would move, right? I'm not done, so that's why I'm just going to do it lightly. Are we okay with the absolute? I kept the positive stuff and I changed the negative stuff. Okay, what kind of reflection is that? The A kind or the B kind? The A. So A does what to it? Flips it over the x-axis.
Wait, I thought A was for with the Y.
A changes your y. So this is kind of the idea, right? This is a B reflection, and this is an A reflection, right? So A changes the y, so can you visualize it? You have to flip it. I'm just doing mine really dark so you can really see it. Can you see the flip that I did? So I absoluted it and then I reflected it.